got here? January, maybe?
You heard
December, January, here.
Yeah, we're here in January.
Anybody familiar with the POG primer?
Yeah.
All right, well, we're the POG primer. POG stands for Peace, Order, and Good Governance. A little bit of my background is I've been concentrating at the local level to take down the United Nations agenda. I've been doing this for about 25 years now. My first kick in the can locally in an election was in 2014. The local level, though, is apolitical. It's not a political level. There's no party affiliation. It's a direct relationship with your elected mayors and councillors. But it's been usurped and it's de facto now. These are de facto trustees. So what the POG primer did was expose the fraud, okay? There's fraud everywhere, right? Fraud in the money system, fraud in the medical system, fraud everywhere. But what this does is I traced it back to the fact that everything United Nations is now being done through the signatures of your mayor and a chief administrative officer in your town. Those two positions are the ones controlling the United Nations agenda right now. It's not the federal level, it's not the provincial level. Okay, so what has happened since September of last year is officials have received the POG primer, notice that they're involved in fraud, but they don't know what to do, so they're ignoring them. Okay, there's probably been now about 1,100 mayors now in Canada that have received the POG primer, as well as councillors. They don't know what to do, but they're panicking, all right? Because they know they're involved with fraud, and they're realizing now that mayors and councillors were offering medical advice, telling you what pharmaceutical products to take without a medical license. Yeah. This is where Cal Washington has come into the picture now, and he and I have joined forces. Anybody familiar with Cal Washington? Yes, brilliant man, another brilliant Canadian. He's had amazing results with his process of notices of liability. The beautiful thing about fraud is that they can't even win in their own de facto court system with fraud or breach of trust. If you read the Canadian Director's Liability in Canada, anybody that breaches a trust that's huge personal liability. You can't avoid that. There's no corporate immunity for it. So what Cal Washington has done is he's tackled 4 different topics that our officials are involved in, all that lead to democide. Democide is defined as public murder by your own government, all right? Our officials are involved in democide. So my article on our article on page 7 of this June Druthers issue, and it's online, you can read it. We basically spelled out that our governments are involved in fraud, which is intentional deception and misrepresentation. They're involved in human trafficking using the birth certificate bonds, and they're caught now using innocent people for profit, and their land, and their assets, and their children, and they're involved in democide. Again, public murder of citizens by their government. So what his notice of liability has done is gone against the 4 main weapons of mass destruction that the United Nations is using against us, every country. That's the chemtrail program, the geoengineering, the vaccine program, which is the mRNA, whatever, all that shit, the smart meters, and the 5G towers. So he's had incredible success by just the 3 notice process, sending in notices to these men and women that are involved. Hey, this is what you're involved in. Should you continue? You know, and it gets them to a notice of default. So him and I are combining forces, and I don't know if you're familiar with Hugh Riley. He actually had us on both on his shows, and this is what he said about it. By combining Cal Washington's 3-step approach to obtaining tacit agreement with Shelagh McFarlane's method for putting mayors back into their true and lawful positions as public trustees, Canada has the template to end the United Nations' economic and political tyranny over individuals, their property, their town, and their country. And that's what Hugh Riley said.
Yeah.
All right? Yes, we are in a war, but we're in a war of words. We're being governed by legalese and banking. All right? Yes, this is spiritual, but it is now revelations. It's now a choice of God or mammon. Our governments are in mammon. That's the problem. Okay? You talk about a parallel system. We have a legal system, but we also have a parallel lawful system. This lawful system has been removed in every country. All right? They basically used contracts, treaties, agreements to remove law from every country. So we're all just in commercial, being governed by our birth certificate bonds. All right? So this is why when you're talking about governance, Mickey Clan, I don't know, she's had some incredible exposure down in the States, Maricopa County, with her notice of liability procedures. She explains it really well, is that governance can range anywhere from utopia to dystopia. Okay? We're pretty close to dystopia in authoritarianism, dictatorship down here. Utopia, how you go from that level to where we are now is utopia, where everything is perfect. Then you start to go down into what they call a volunteerism, where your society is run by everybody just voluntarily picking up garbage and doing unto others and da-da-da. From there you go into a sovereignty, where everybody operates individually as a private capacity. From there you go into a republic. And a republic is where we're aiming for now. And it's a way of disengaging from the democratic authoritarian contract law legal that we're under now. And how you republic is you separate the men and women and their assets from the commercial environment that they've been put in. All right, so the process that we're working on now, and there should be another article in the July paper, Darlers is now doing a cross-country tour across the country to, one, activate hubs for downloads, just in case there's censorship. They will perhaps become the national newspaper. But also to try to get the stories and realizing that every community, every town in Canada is all facing the same thing. We're all being strapped by this United Nations agenda. It can be terminated by republicing the local level trustees and republicing that service corporation. And that restores law. So that you can have your parallel systems without creating anarchy, or it's almost like it's a controlled demolition. So this is where I'm working on. It doesn't involve a lot of people. You know, it involves a few people in each area that will walk the process through. Because throwing notices at these people, which we realize they don't do anything, they don't know what to do. All right, the notice process is boom. Here's your notice to admit. Fraud, you're in the wrong jurisdiction. Boom, here's your notice of fault. You didn't answer. Boom, here's your notice of default. Apparently from there, it just goes to a notary public, gets on register, okay? And then we can start to restore our levels. And I'd like to see the whole country do it in tandem, because I think it would just blow the world away. And we actually have a duty. This is how the local level of government was initially set up. You keep your money separate over in the trustee's office, the office of the mayor, and then you keep your service corporation doing your contracts separate and apart. And the problem, why we have this problem is because we merged money in, we merged public in with private. Okay, and nobody knows what the hell's going on. We're all just being treated like birth certificate bonds. Ka-ching, 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 ka-ching. They won't recognize men and women. Legal is two-dimensional paper. Contracts, writing, yesterday, okay? Law is three-dimensional, pulls up that third dimension of men and women, spirit, breath, right? And that's what we have to get back, and that's what we're working on. And I'm not stopping until I do, because that's what's wonderful about fraud is you don't have to go back to 1861 and figure out what the hell the Constitution said. No, fraud vitiates all, and we actually finalized it here from some maxims of law. To one that exceeds his office or jurisdiction, no obedience is due. These are maxims. 2, he who does not repel a wrong when he can, induces it. 3, silence implies consent. Paying implies consent. So that's your taxes, all right? So we will have a process to stop paying taxes, but in a lawful way. And finally, fraud vitiates all contracts. We're being governed by contracts. If they're engaged in fraud, which is non-disclosure, wrong jurisdiction, wrong oath, false oath, null and void. But these people need to be walked through the process and somebody to stand in on their behalf. And we'll help you in every way. Because Cal is done too. His father was injected and medical issue. My dad injected medical issues. And this isn't my country. It's not my country. You know, like, and I don't understand people like, oh, you know, yes, people are going in and doing deputations and trying to talk this. No, the talking is over.
Yeah.
You can't talk to these people anymore. They're de facto. They're in the wrong capacity. They can't do anything for you until you put them in the right capacity. And we have the power now. We have the process now. Okay? And this is revelations, meaning we're revealing. And the truth will be revealed. But we also have to come from love and forgiveness. So the POG is a process of, hey, we think you're kind of involved in some shit here. We want to help you out of it. It's really easy. We just change your oath to 1, you promise to serve and protect men and women, and 2, so help you God. That's your oath. Not this declaration, oh, I promise to be faithful to King Chuck. What the hell? No. An oath is what you promise to do, and what happens if you don't do it. Covenant. Just like your vows, your marriage vows. All right? What's happening now is you think you've elected your mayor to be your husband, but he goes and he makes a pledge to the what do we call it? Maid of honor. Right? He's made another agreement with her.
Yeah.
So once the trust is breached, the relationship is breached. There's no sense talking anymore. So this is where we're really running out of time. The housing financing agreement is coming down the pike, the strong mayor coming down the pike, the immigration alone, they're swamping us with immigrants because Canadians are very embracive, all right? Immigration kills us, all right? I said it when I ran for mayor. It's like, you know what? If you have a dog that you don't feed and you leave tied up outside, and you bring another dog home and you feed it and you bring it inside, there's going to be a dog fight the minute those two meet, right? It's human nature, it's animal nature. And that's what immigration is doing. Bringing in foreigners, giving them before you're serving your people, and it causes that animosity which feeds into the United Nations troops. So yeah, this is a very peaceful way of exiting. Hey guys, you're on the wrong side. Come on over here to law. If you don't want to, we'll be over here in law, and your sorry ass is going to lose everything. Because they know damn well that they're responsible for every adverse reaction. Every adverse reaction. If your mayor did not sign the emergency order, the local emergency order, nothing could have happened in your area. This is how important it is to get your mayors or your local officials back into that trust environment so that then they can disengage all public assets, which will be the birth certificate bonds, because that's also proof of fraud. That's proof of human trafficking. So this also is a way of monetizing Cal Washington's method of the notices of liability. It's a beautiful fit, and it's easy because it doesn't require everybody knowing it, but it requires some good fucking walkers. All right? I only, maybe 10 per area. I got 6 now in Guelph ready to go. I'd like to have another 4. Jesus took 12, right? Well, 11, but this is how simple it is. Walk, but stand behind these notices and get these guys out, because these pens are killing us. And I don't know if you last trip to the grocery store, forget it.
Yeah.
This country is the biggest country with the smallest population and the most resources, and we got people living in tents. Like, come on, seriously, and $2 trillion in debt. We know there's something wrong. That's the beauty of fraud. It finishes it. But you gotta call it and stand behind it. You can't just go, hey, you're a fraud, do something, I'm going golfing. So if anybody's interested in this, stay tuned, contact me. Cal Washington's website is empowermovement.org. And he offers his services of the notice process, but we're both uniting to kind of do this for Canada in order to set the templates for it. Because every country has been victim to this cookie cutter agenda, and therefore ipso facto, every country can use the same template to disengage, and there's nothing that they can do, nothing. Because you're right, we are the power, but governance starts from the bottom up, right? And you form your council. What we have now are corporate municipal councils doing the dictates of a board of directors, not the board of trustees that are out for your best interests. And this will also release all the land claims that are under fraudulent possession, right? When we see where the UNDRIP program is taking us, we see the writing on the wall. So I wouldn't waste any more time, man, because like I say, you know, if you go along with it, you're actually consenting, and they just keep going. So I just want to say that, whoa, we got some major guns now behind this, and so get ready in your area. Start getting the freedom groups there, you know, together or whatever, and this will be the real solution locally to disengage the money, because it's the money that's controlling everything. You set up your local treasury, boom, automatically you start to starve those service corporations, and they're the ones bringing your sustainable development goals. They're the ones that are painting the rainbow sidewalks overnight in your town, right? So, so my website is Shelagh.ca, SHELAW. My pronouns are she and law, and so go there. All my stuff's free. I've the POG and my articles and my restoration plan. Cal Washington and I will be kind of combining this, but it won't be released until we have a team on the ground in an area, and we'll back you 100%. But again, this is not a template service that you can just throw to Nancy and, you know, the mayor and say, hey, Nancy, change your ways, because number one, a trustee requires direction from the constituents, right? So you need to direct them, you need to tell them your local issues, your local agenda, and we can walk you through all of that too. The reasons why you're being governed by local government is because you never took control of your local level. And that was the beauty of the global to local download, is that they could just, boom, 2 weeks to flatten the curve, they had everybody injected pretty fast. In a Commonwealth country that has an immunization act that, you know, restricts automatic, you know, immunization. Mandatory. So we know there's something wrong. We know how to fix it. We're getting the processes in place. Anybody interested in wanting to stand for your area, truly honored to do so. So yeah, and I'll be working, and I'm even, you know, willing to move to Huntsville to help you guys out.
That's why I mean we're working